everybody, welcome to another Toy Guys Talking. I am a toy guy, and I'm talking to another toy guy. Good brother, Clave Jones, thank you so much for taking the time to come back.
Absolutely. Good to talk to you again.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's been too long.
Way too long. It's always too long every time I get someone back on the show. I guess Toy Guys Talking is a show now. It's like the Late Show or the Tonight Show.
Yeah, you have a history now. You have episodes in the can. It's a whole show.
What are we going to talk about today?
Gosh, I don't know. That's a good question. I sadly have been just a dirty, rotten, lapsed nerd lately.
that might be a whole brand there, because I'm a big fan of this wrestling podcast called the Lapsed Fan Podcast.
Yeah.
And it's this amazing angle that it's like wrestling used to be better. That's their whole premise. And they talk about old wrestling and how it was better. They talk about new wrestling and how it's not as good as the old thing. I guess that's a little bit of what I do, but yeah, the lapsed nerd, I think there's a lot of lapsed nerds out there.
Yeah, just up to my neck in day jobs, so no fun for me lately.
Well, hopefully you'll be able to retire in a couple of months.
That's right. Take early retirement and I'm back to being full-time nerd.
Man, I think it's just depressing thinking I'm going to be able to retire in a few years or in a few decades. Don't think of it that way. Think of it as a few months or a few weeks.
Yeah, I only have at least 25 more years to work. Yeah. It's fine.
So, let's I guess we could talk about something in the news or something vintage. Your pick.
Well, how about Mandalorian?
Yes, Mandalorian was a blast.
Ever since I've seen that you are a Mandalorian fan, I'm like, okay, I gotta see what's up.
Yeah, so love the first episode, blew me away. Had to watch it twice. We watched each episode twice. I think 1 to 6, we watched them all twice. And then with 7 and 8, it was just kind of, you get that whole we're wrapping up what's going to happen thing, and then it kind of doesn't nurture that savor mentality as much because you want to power through it. So we haven't watched the 7th and the 8th episodes again yet, but yeah, we really enjoyed it. When it was done, we kind of sat back and went, "This is the way."
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah,
this is Star Wars.
Well, and here's what I like. I watch it with my entire family.
Yeah.
So my girls, except for episode 6. So I'll come drop a pin in that. So
that's the prison one, right?
Yeah, and it's probably a little too scary for my youngest.
Definite departure in tone in that particular episode. I noticed. Yeah. I also noticed with my wife. We're like, every episode is so fun. When we say this is Star Wars, what we mean is fun, wholesome, not dark, not creepy or depressing, just fun and uplifting. And that was the one where we went, that's a little 2019 creeping in there.
Yeah. Well, but it's great because they love it. So it's our entire family can watch Star Wars together. And obviously I'm thrilled. So I get up at 5 a.m. and I'm watching it myself. Yeah. And then later in the evening, we get together as a family and watch it. And it's been great. So my girls are into it. My wife loves it. So it's been fantastic.
It's amazing how many people who have soured on Star Wars, or I consider myself not part of the fandom menace. I just consider myself part of the people who really don't love a lot of the new stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that's maybe some people need to dwell more on that, because they are like an all or nothing mentality. You got to either love it or hate it.
Isn't that the truth? My goodness.
Those are the extremes, right? And I prefer having many shades of gray. So the OT, some of those early books, Star Wars Galaxy Magazine, loved it, really passionate about it. Some of the books kind of liked it. Some of the newer stuff, don't like it. Don't hate it, just don't like it. And I just think life is too short to waste a lot of your time on things that you're okay with. It's like, man, you got such little time on this planet. Be passionate. Be really, really in love with things, not in like with them. So now that the sequel trilogy is wrapped up, I kind of had, I don't know if it was an epiphany or just some light bulb went over my head. I was looking at my 1/6 scale display case, and I have movie heroes of all ages, and I got a lot of original trilogy Star Wars
Yeah.
figures in that display setup. And on the bottom of each of the original trilogy rows are some prequel figures. So I got Clone Wars guys on one side and Revenge of the Sith on the other. And now that this whole thing, even though I haven't seen Rise of Skywalker, it just feels like, okay, that's done. Finally, we can stop listening to all the hype and the worry, worrying about if a movie is going to make you really, really, really happy.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at it and going, because I started reading Heir to the Empire again and watching the despecialized. Yeah. And watching
so fun.
And the despecialized editions of the original trilogy, and I'm loving Star Wars passionately again.
Yeah.
Because I wasted too much time liking the prequels and being okay about the sequels. Force Awakens, Last Jedi, didn't hate it, but I was definitely like, oh, all right, that's...
And you haven't seen Rise of Skywalker?
No, but I know everything that happened. I've had discussions, and I'm not a spoiler guy. I don't like surprises because for a while there, I was like everyone else. Don't tell me. Yeah. And then I started to see stuff like I'll use Force Awakens as a perfect example. Going into that totally unspoiled, I want to be surprised, and I walked out going, I wish I had known everything about that movie, because the Solo thing, I was like, that's a D-bag move. I would have told whoever made that decision or people that made that decision, you're D-bags for doing that to that character in that way. I mean, if you want to kill him off, fine. Kill him off, give him a hero's death. Optimus Prime and Transformers the movie. Nothing wrong with that death. It's a warrior's death. No one can ever convince me that was a warrior's death, or a hero's death, what Han Solo, what happened to him in that movie. And the little cheek caress didn't do it for me. Maybe if it worked for other people, that's fine. But that was one thing. And then like the 30-second Luke cameo, I was like, I can't believe I went into this blind and had that much faith in these people. My respect for those people just crashed through the floor. I was so hyped for the return of Luke Skywalker and Luke, Han, and Leia. And Luke didn't say one word in the movie. And
no words. No speaking parts.
So that's a big reason why spoilers, I don't care. I want to know, because I don't want to walk into a movie ever again and going, Lando's in this for 10 seconds? And I know he's in it for more than 10 seconds, but like that's where I'm coming from with that. But anyway, short story long, I got rid of my prequel stuff. Like I've boxed it up because I'm thinking like, I think it's okay. And I don't want stuff on display. I don't want to honor, stuff that I just think is okay. And so I boxed it up and I put stuff that I'm really passionate about instead, like Metal Gear Solid. Still love it. I had some boxed up stuff that I didn't have much space for. And so I like that display a lot more. And anywhere, I don't have that much.
Cycle stuff in and out.
Yeah, so I don't have much prequel stuff.
There's seasons for stuff. Yeah.
And who knows what the future holds. Maybe someday I'll be able to appreciate the prequels more than I do, and maybe the sequels too. But for now, this whole thing, what it's taught me is, hey, you are an original trilogy fan. You're not a Star Wars saga fan, because that's the word they keep throwing around, the Star Wars saga. I'm a fan of 3 Star Wars movies.
Yeah.
So
let me give you this will be a spoiler-free, different perspective. So I've seen Rise of Skywalker twice.
So you loved it.
So opening day, I saw it with my wife. She loved it. And then later on, I have my 2 girls, and then I have 3 nephews. And so my nephews are right in between them. And so they're let's see. Anyway, 11, 10, and 8. So they're just all. So I'm watching this with triplets. Family gatherings are just a gaggle of kids. Too many kids. I'm like, who are you? What's going on? Yeah. And so the 5 kids, my wife, my brother-in-law, my sister-in-law. So we're all in this big line watching it together. And oh my gosh, I'm sitting next to my nephew Augie, but I could see everyone's faces, and I'm looking down. I spent half the movie. This is my second showing. Half the movie watching them watch the movie, and without a doubt, it was my best cinema experience in my entire life. Just to watch their eyes, just to watch the delight, just to listen to my nephew Augie just gasp and squeal. Oh, it was just an absolute delight. And I'm like, for nothing else, that moment was, oh, I loved it. I loved it. And that's including, I saw Empire when I was a kid back in 1980 in the theater. But that was my favorite cinema experience of all time. And I watched half the movie, just looked down and just watched them as they were watching the movie. And it was great. It was a lot of fun. So I am so thrilled for them and for my girls. And, there's parts where you like and you dislike, but I'm at this point, I'm like, I'm a 45-year-old man. Yeah. Like I'm just delighting for them. And I'm so excited. They are all in hardcore Star Wars fans now.
Yeah, not a knock on your age or anything, but you're old Ben Kenobi. So am I. Our destiny exactly. lies along a different path than theirs.
Absolutely,
and
absolutely.
That's an awesome story to hear, because that's how empathy works, boys and girls out there. Just because you aren't personally connecting with something and feeling, you can look to others and go, they're loving it, and their joy is my joy. If you're not closed off.
Yeah.
So that I love to hear that, and that's why despite how I feel about it, I'm never going to try to convince somebody you're wrong. That movie is bad.
Well, to your earlier point, my favorite character in all of nerdy history is Han Solo. Like, I love Han Solo, and so I mean, obviously, I have a lot of.
You like him because he's a scoundrel, don't you?
A scoundrel. Yeah.
You need more scoundrels in your life.
Yeah, but then my daughter has been talking about Rey nonstop, and my nephew's talking about Poe nonstop, and I'm like, this is great. I love it.
So I want to ask you, I think we're pretty similar in terms of what kids should be exposed to and shouldn't be exposed to. I mean, there's parents out there who will show their kids Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
And go, what's the big deal? I saw when I was 7.
I can afford the therapy later.
Yeah. So that was one of the things that, I don't have kids, but, they're on my mind, I am concerned about what they're being shown and being told that's okay. So one of the things when I saw Force Awakens, when everyone was doing like the masterpiece, I was going, a son just skewered his father.
Yeah.
And that is a line that never was crossed in the original. The closest they came was a father cutting his son's hand off. That was pretty extreme, but he didn't kill him. There's still there's still hope in that story of he didn't kill him. He was like, join me. Yeah, join me and rule the galaxy, but still join with me. You're my son. We should be together. I spare you because you're my son. So I walked away from Force Awakens, and there's also stuff in Last Jedi, and I hear in Rise of Skywalker as well. People dying left and right. That death in the original trilogy and in so many 80s things wasn't used as a plot device. Like, what are we going to do with him? Kill him off. What do we do with him?
Right.
Kill him off.
Yeah.
It was more like, what are we going to do with him? Injure him, or give him emotional distress that he has to work through. It feels like in the 80s, what do we do with Luke at the end of Empire? Emotional distress. I have to work out these feelings about my father. What would you do with him today? Kill him, because it's just there's no other depth. But what do you think about the new movies, and do you think that it's okay for really young kids to be watching people get skewered and chopped up to pieces and blown up left and right?
Yeah. I hate it.
There you go.
I mean, quite frankly, on one hand, it's like the history of so much kid programming is like the relationship with kids and parents. Like, I mean, like, honestly, like half of Disney princesses, they're orphaned, right? There's a story through so many of those. So it's always been there in a sense, but to your point, it's never been. There was always this line that was never crossed, and as a parent, I can't be Pollyanna about it. That what's the genie's out of the bottle. It's there. So I have to as a responsibility help my kids through that and limit what they do, and I try really hard to do that. Not be Pollyanna. This is the world we live in, but I do just it breaks my heart sometimes the things. There was a psychoanalyst, and I apologize, I cannot recall her name,
Beth.
but we'll call her Beth. So sad because she's brilliant. She's brilliant. But anyway, her quote was nihilism is fertilizer for anxiety and depression.
Ooh.
And I can see of the decades just the nihilism that's
Yeah.
come in. To your point about just we're awash in violence. We're just
Yeah.
awash in
Absolutely.
violence and all this frightening imagery and just the nihilism that comes from that. And then we wonder why you have this spike in depression rates and anxiety. Um, I worked with these group of teenagers, and 50% of them were on anxiety medications. And I'm like, maybe correlation isn't necessarily causation, but there's something there, right?
Yeah.
And so as a parent, I just kind of mourn that we are in just a culture where we're just awash in violence, and I see the depression and anxiety go up. But honestly, that's the reason I'm so thankful for something like The Mandalorian and Star Wars.
Yeah.
That even with those moments, it still feels like just a welcome break from that. My favorite thing in all the world. My wife was talking with me because I've been a Star Wars guy since I was a kid, right? And we were just kind of talking. I'm like, my favorite thing is the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And she's like, more than Star Wars, and I'm like, yeah, for sure.
At this point now, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just the last 10 years, how I've just shifted. And gosh, I love the MCU. And they do violence and they fight and it's galactic and it's whatever, but they really hew close. Most of those movies are I would call a soft PG-13
Yeah.
in our culture, because you'll have some other PG-13 movies that they're like, let's see how hard we can push this. But the MCU, they hit that line. And that's the reason I'm actually really thankful for Disney. A lot of folks are like, "Oh, Disney, they've bought up everything and they've ruined it." And I'm like, for a guy like me, I'm like, go Disney, give me more Mandalorian and more.
Wait,
Um,
here's breaking news. Nerds on Earth has just been purchased by Disney.
oh man, I wish I had that type of dough. Wouldn't that be awesome?
And
Yeah,
and as far as Toy Guys talking goes, I'm told the check is in the mail.
right, right. Well, gosh, it's so funny because Nerds on Earth, where I don't know how half of our writers, I'm definitely just the old dad that's like, I'm not going to watch that, and the rest of the guys are like, give me the Punisher, give me.
Yeah.
Almost everything in my lens is through my kids nowadays.
I don't have a preconceived notion or preconceived judgment on anything. Like I'm a huge Punisher fan, but
Yeah,
that doesn't mean I walk out of Punisher Warzone going, we got more
right.
Punisher. I walked out of Warzone going, that sucked.
Yeah,
That was not as good as it could have been because we had I thought a really good movie with Thomas Jane, which got way better in the director's cut too. That thing got a little crippled in the editing. But I love the Thomas Jane Punisher. I thought he was great, and then he was supposed to be in a pretty good sequel. And to hear his side of the story, he wouldn't come back because he didn't want to do a bad sequel. He said the
mm,
character's too important to me, and
yeah.
I won't do it. So, and just kind of to back that up, he went and did that Dirty Laundry fan film, just to show
I don't
like,
know that one.
yeah, he did one on YouTube a few years back. It's total, fan film. They use the music from The Dark Knight, the Joker theme.
Really?
Yeah, so
Okay.
it's not even original score, but it's Thomas Jane, and you don't realize he's Frank, but it's in New
Yeah.
York. He's sleeping in a van. It starts with him having a flashback, hearing gunshots and his family screaming, and it's not even
So
necessarily following up the movie he was in. Like I kind of got the impression maybe they're it's a different Frank Castle, but still, the point is this: he's a guy clad in black. He's just got a regular looking jacket and pants and a cap, and something's bothering him. He's haunted by something, and he's just doing laundry. And while he's doing laundry, a bunch of thugs, a gang, starts beating up on a woman, and they're beating up on a little kid who, I guess they want him to run drugs for them. And he comes out and looks around, and the gang guys are like, "What are you looking at, old man? What are you doing?" And he just looks at him and goes, "Laundry." Like, I just doing laundry. And he doesn't want to get involved. He's tired. So he goes to the convenience store, and Ron Perlman is in this thing too. This little,
Seriously?
yeah, this little fan film. Ron Perlman's in it. So Perlman is talking about, man, I did 2 tours and wherever, Iraq, came back without a scratch, came back to this meat grinder. I'm in a wheelchair now. You know, I got shot by one of those guys, and it's chaos out there. It's crazy. And he's asking Thomas Jane's character, whatever his name is, we got a sale on vodka, because he's buying a Yoo-Hoo. You got a sale on vodka or something like that. And
Good old Yoo-Hoo.
And Thomas Jane just says, I've been sober 6 months or something like that. So calling back to the Thomas Jane Punisher, he's really throwing the wild turkey back in that one, right? So it's like,
you know what you're looking for. It's clear.
We've got connections here. Who is this guy? Like, this is unofficial. This isn't a Disney Marvel.
What's it called?
Dirty Laundry.
Dirty Laundry.
So then, as he's watching these thugs beating up on this poor little kid and this lady, he finally decides, like, I can't do this, and he puts a 20 down. And he goes, bottle of Jack. He wants Jack Daniels. So then you're thinking, oh, he's gonna throw a few back. No, he's using one of those indestructible bottles of Jack Daniels to punish all these street thugs. And if you've ever seen the Netflix Marvel shows like Daredevil and the Punisher, and they're so gory, they're about the same, or maybe this thing is a little worse in terms of gore. Like, this little fan film is so brutal and gory. We're talking about stomping on a guy's limbs, breaking his limbs so that he's crippled on the ground. It is just brutally violent, but it's the Punisher. Like, that's what Frank does in the comics. Yeah. And then he doesn't kill the guy. Like, he pours the Jack all over him, and then he lights a lighter and he says, the difference between justice and punishment. And he leaves the lighter on the ground in front of him. And the guy's like, what? And his arms and legs are broken. And he just walks away, sits down, and keeps doing his laundry. He's like, there, now you guys can do something about it if you want to do something about it. So the lady who was getting roughed up, like, she picks up the lighter and she realizes what the difference between justice and punishment is. One's personal, one's not. So, pretty fun fan film, right? And it's like, ooh, they got really close to that Punisher thing without actually infringing on copyrights. Right. So as he's getting in the van, sorry to everyone who's getting spoiled, but I already told you my attitude on spoilers. But he's putting he's putting all of his clothes in the van again, and he's about to take off, and this kid goes, "Sir, you dropped this t-shirt." And Thomas Jane's character says, "Keep it. It's got a hole in it anyway." And he drives away, and the kid turns the shirt over, and it's the Punisher symbol. Yeah. So it's a new one. It's a stylized one, but I believe it was an actual, like, they unveiled the new Punisher symbol by that artist in this fan film, which wasn't official. So how they were able to do that in an unofficial fan film, use an actual official Marvel logo, trademark, Punisher skull, and that was like perfect. Like, that's Thomas Jane's sequel. That's what he wanted to do. It's only 10 or 15 minutes. It's not a full movie. But that to me felt like, like he got to close that chapter on his life, say goodbye to the character, and then we get to move on to the amazing John Bernthal Punisher movie. Yeah.
That must have been 10 years ago or so, right?
Quite a while, yeah. Yeah, but incredible, and I think a major precursor to the Netflix Marvel shows. Someone at Marvel must have seen that and went, yeah, Marvel movies don't have to be fun, or shows. Like, they don't have to be like make you vomit from the gore, because as gory as that little short was, Dirty Laundry, it was more about the moral of the story. Yeah. And the moral is, you got a guy who can do something about this, and he doesn't want to anymore, because he just thinks, what's the point? There's no point. I'm tired. They don't appreciate it, and I'm sick of, sticking my neck out for these people. And it's such a short movie, but it's so strong writing because even in this little short, he comes full circle. He's got a hero's journey. He realizes I have
Yep.
a talent and I should be using it not just to bail people out. It's that old saying, you give a guy a fish, he can eat for a day. You teach him to fish, he can eat for a lifetime. And that's kind of what the lesson of that little short was. Like, I'm done saving you people. You need to, do a little bit of the heavy lifting too.
Yeah. I see the A team behind you. Uh,
Yes.
I miss the A team. My favorite growing up was MacGyver. Like I love MacGyver. I carried a flattened roll of duct tape in my back pocket
Yeah.
and a little Swiss Army knife because I was such a little MacGyver nerd. But the A team, and I forget which episode of The Mandalorian it was, but it was when they were in the village, right? And they helped the village from the invaders, not the invaders, like the thugs.
With the ATST.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, this is absolutely 110% an episode of the A Team that we're
Yeah.
watching on the Mandalorian. I'm like, this is the best. I
I would
loved it so much.
I would love to do an edit of that sequence with dun 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 dun
Yeah,
dun doo
yeah,
doo 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 doo, because
yeah.
every A team had to have that MacGyvering sequence, even though they came before.
Exactly.
MacGyver
Exactly.
of like, and they'd never show the heads, right? It was always like a pair of arms reaches in, and then you see a guy
Yeah,
wearing Face Man's jacket carrying something. I guess
exactly.
that was because they didn't actually have the cast doing all this heavy lifting. They had stand-ins doing it,
Yep. Yep.
while they were off in catering, probably Papard and T arguing with each other or
But that
whatever.
story of we are going to empower the people to provide their own to stand up to the bully. It was like every episode of the A Team. We're gonna
Yeah.
empower folks to stand up to the bully.
So
And that episode of Mandalorian was it.
it's interesting. We're talking about the A Team. Literally, like 2 days ago, I watched Mexican Sleigh Ride, the A Team pilot episode,
Oh yeah.
for the first time in years. So I've had the DVD box set for quite a while. I watched it, all the way through a couple of years ago, and then the Blu-ray came out in the UK. So 1080 full HD, and when they remaster old
Did they
shows,
stretch it?
no, it's still 4:3,
Okay.
but the quality is so high, so sharp that you can zoom in, and it fills up your whole screen, and nothing important is getting cut off. I did the same thing with Star Trek: The Next Generation and the original series as well. I always do that, Airwolf. Whenever I'm watching an old 4:3 show in HD, I'll zoom in, and it's almost like that's how it was meant to be, and we were getting
Yeah.
extra on the top and bottom so that it could be cut off one day. Like, the framing is always better when you crop it. A little top of the
Yeah.
head is cut off, which is better than space above the head.
Yeah.
But I was able to watch Mexican Sleigh Ride in HD. They haven't released the North American cheap A-Team box set yet for Blu-ray, counting the minutes to that. Apparently one's on the way. But there was one in the UK a while back, and now it's really dropping in price. But I just loved watching the A-Team in HD because those guys have a sparkle in their eye, and it makes such a huge difference when they're in HD now, because you really get to
Yeah.
see the subtlety of George Papard. Dirk Benedict isn't in the first episode. It's jarring as a huge A-Team fan to see
Yeah.
Tim Dunnigan as the really tall,
That is.
young face man,
Yeah.
Captain
That is
Power.
so. Yeah. All right. I'm gonna take you around the block a little bit. So here's what I loved about 80s television. 80s television was just, I mean, it was by and large the main thing was just it was like bounty hunters and private investigators. It was
Yes.
all these like hired guns, hired.
Stuntmen bounty hunters.
Totally, totally. So that was the 80s, right? And so then TV had a big shift, which went into like procedural dramas and like
Yeah.
NCIS, Law and Order. So it was like all these hired guns operating outside the system, and then it went like, hey, let's get a look behind the scenes of the system. How the Law and Order works. And then nowadays, I would say it's probably fair to say it's superpowered individuals instead of just hired guns. But I love the hired guns thing. So here's where I
Mercenaries.
wanted. Yeah, mercenaries. Yeah.
Mercenaries with a heart of gold, because
Exactly.
because
Exactly.
as I was watching Mexican Sleigh Ride, and it was Luana's first time ever seeing it.
Yeah.
You've got this extended sequence of like Hannibal trying to decide if he's going to take this job, and
Han Solo.
he's
Yeah.
got the disguises, and he's testing Amy, he's testing her, he's seeing, is she legit, is she a good person, and then he eventually takes the job, and it turns out she's really short on the payment, like really comes up short, and he puts up a little bit of a stink. It's like, turn this plan around, Murdoch. I'm like,
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
isn't a charity here, and
We're doing this for money.
yeah, but when
Yeah.
she like insists, come on, this guy is a good guy, I'm good for the money, please. All right, we
Yeah.
can make this. And I remember so many episodes like that where the poor farmers or whoever,
Yeah.
the Mennonites, the Amish, they just, sorry, Mr. Smith, we don't have the money.
Yeah.
All right,
No,
this one's pro
you
bono,
nailed it.
boys.
Mercenary or scoundrel with the heart of gold, the
Yeah.
Han Solo sort of thing. So on Nerds on Earth, we do lists of 7. So here's I'm so curious. So let's talk about our 7 favorite 80s mercenary with the heart of gold.
This is awesome.
So I would say A Team would be my number 2 because MacGyver's my number 1.
Would you consider MacGyver a mercenary?
Well, for sake of argument,
Well,
let's go.
what was he though? Because
He worked for a
an
fake
agency.
government agency, the Phoenix Foundation, right?
Yeah.
And so he was a hired gun-ish sort of, but he definitely had that heart of gold in that same.
Okay.
But
Because my wife and I
MacGyver-
were watching some MacGyver episodes. We were like 5 or 6 in, and I'm still asking her, what is he?
totally,
What
totally.
is he?
So the Phoenix Foundation, whatever the heck that was, whatever.
Okay. I think
But
it counts.
I loved MacGyver, A Team. Remember the Fall Guy?
Yes. Yes.
Fall Guy would probably be my number 3. And then it's like Airwolf, and I don't know, is BJ and the Bear count? I don't. That might be stretching it too far, but let's see if we can get to a list of 7 of those.
Well, BJ and the Bear was one of the first shows I ever watched as a kid. I don't remember anything other than a guy in a truck with an orangutan.
With an orangutan. Yeah.
So, but definitely A Team is on that list. I'm just looking around, at my room. My movie collection is upstairs. But would Hardcastle and McCormick be in there? Because the judge is retired. He's kind of...
I don't remember it. Like, I remember it, but I can't recall enough about it. I haven't seen it since I was a kid.
The premise was you got this judge who busted this guy who, Mark McCormick, drives the Coyote, that red, it's this red supercar, but he busted him for stealing his own car.
Oh my gosh, Knight Rider.
Knight Rider.
Sorry.
One
Sorry.
man with a supercar can make a difference. But yeah, Hardcastle and McCormick about a judge who's retired, and he takes this ex-con who shouldn't have really been busted for what he got busted for. He was stealing his own car from his ex-girlfriend. Like he was having trouble with the ex-girlfriend. He's not a bad guy, but they threw the book at him because he got in trouble a few other times. But they decided, I'm a retired judge. You're going to help me go after the cases that slipped through the cracks. So they didn't actually do that very often on the show, him hunting down the old criminals who got away from him because of, legal loopholes. But I would include that, Hardcastle and McCormick. They were kind of vigilantes that were welcome in a police station.
Rule of fun, we say yes. So Hardcastle, McCormick. So we have MacGyver, A Team, Fall Guy, Hardcastle, McCormick, Knight Rider, Airwolf. That's 6.
What about Hunter? Even though he's a cop, he's basically Dirty Harry.
Yeah.
Hunter or
Totally.
or Sledgehammer. I mean, these guys, even though they're the
Oh,
law,
I totally forgot about Sledgehammer.
yeah, they operate outside the law, even though they wear a badge.
Yeah. On YouTube style, this is where the comments come in. Folks are going to be like telling us where we
Yeah.
the ones we forgot.
I'm thinking of some
But
others.
man,
Simon and
What
Simon.
a lineup. Simon and Simon for sure.
They were
Simon
PIs,
Simon.
right?
Yeah.
Murder, She Wrote.
Yeah, that's
Maybe not.
that's a little bit different.
Oh, I got the ultimate one. Even though he only took like $1, I think his payment was $1, but the Equalizer.
Oh,
Remember
first,
him?
yeah, totally. I remember the
Robert
Equalizer.
McCall. Yeah.
Yeah. See, I mean, that's a great list of. You could watch those shows and binge them all and just have a best time.
Yeah. I love that the Equalizer. I don't know if it was in every episode, but I remember in probably the pilot and maybe all of them, $1. That's what he wanted. Like that.
$1.
That's your
Yeah.
payment. Like, why not free? I'm like, because you should pay something.
Yeah.
You do
But
owe something.
I can't remember what his who his benefactor was or how
He was like
he
an
was able to do.
ultimate government agent. Like a spec op type of, like above a Green Beret. He was
Yeah.
basically like James Bond,
Yeah.
working for a shady, mysterious government agency, Control, and he wanted out. Like he had too much red in his ledger, and he just, showers weren't making him feel
That's
better.
right.
So he
That's
wanted
right.
out, and they were like,
Yeah. It
"Wait a
was
second,
kind of this karma thing.
yeah."
He wanted to balance the ledger, and so he'd only take a buck. That's right.
And they told him, "You don't get out. I mean, once you're in, you don't get
Yeah.
out." And he's like, "I'm Robert McCall. Like, stop
Yeah.
me.
Exactly.
I know who I am."
Exactly.
So even though like he got out, he was still, on a semi good relationship with his former employers. It wasn't like they were trying to kill him because he's this dangerous loose cannon. They were just like, "Hey, occasionally, can you help us out with this? I know you're retired." And so sometimes he'd be juggling multiple jobs in one episode, which would lead to some really weird episodes where he's like trying to help a kid at school who's being bullied, like a 7-year-old who's being
Yeah.
bullied, and at the same time he's trying to stop cocaine dealers who are trying
Yeah.
to take down
You have the A
Chinatown.
story and the B story, and you're like, I don't know how these connect sometimes.
Yeah, this guy could use an assistant.
Exactly. I don't know if this multitasking is important right now.
Man, the Equalizer just shows you that not all reboots have to be bad or totally miss the mark. Because I love the Denzel movie, the first one of the
Yeah.
Equalizer.
Yeah.
Even though they changed it a lot, that still I thought it was fantastic. Just have this guy who's got these incredible skills, and it's like I need to do something for karma, for good karma now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's
There's
the kind of movie, and the A-Team movie too. Those are the type of movies that make me feel like if it's in the right hands, it can still recapture the spirit of the original.
Yeah. Well, you can make another list of 7 of Denzel movies that are just great. The Man on Fire sort of thing.
Oh yeah.
Like they're always a good watch if they're on Netflix or whatever.
Has there ever been a Denzel figure? I don't think
There
there
is. I'm not
has.
aware of it.
I was looking after the Equalizer. I was looking for one of those. You can find them on eBay, custom 6-scale heads. So even
Yeah.
though there isn't like an official John McClane 6-scale figure, there's tons of 6-scale Bruce Willis heads. So you can just get a Bruce Willis head and make your own John McClane. So I was looking for Denzel heads, and I guess there was probably unofficial, but a Book of Eli figure,
Yeah.
like a third-party Book of Eli figure is
If
out
there
there.
wasn't, that seems like a miss if there's not. Like McFarlane, you would think that they do a lot of movie
Or
sort of
NECA.
tie-ins. NECA, yeah. And then what is that company that does the throwback figures? Is it NECA? But they do like Family Ties and like
Oh, I don't.
Golden Girls and
I
you know what I'm
don't
talking
know.
about? And they're in Target.
Super 7,
Um,
maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. At any rate, you would think that some of these old figures would be out there.
You think that's a potential gold mine of merchandising rights? Because we see so many old '80s toy lines being brought back, and companies like NECA, McFarlane, Pop Culture Shock, all those guys, they'll do '80s movies, right? Like and Hot
Yep.
Toys. Hot Toys is still
Yep.
doing '80s movies characters and '90s movies characters. You don't see any Dukes of Hazzard, Knight Rider. Well, you're starting to
Yeah.
see a little bit of Knight Rider, but
Yeah.
A-Team, Zilch, Fall Guy, the Greenlight.
Yeah.
Greenlight is doing a die-cast Fall Guy truck in a couple of months, which
Oh,
I'm
is that right?
so excited about. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've wanted a Fall Guy truck since I was whatever 7 or 8, and I ain't dropping $300 on the original plastic one. Forget that.
Totally.
But
Totally.
yeah, like those are great shows. Airwolf. How do we not have, other than like the $200 or $300 Japanese little,
Yeah.
specialty model kit that came out recently?
Yeah.
Why isn't Greenlight or some of these other like Hot Wheels or those types of diecast companies giving us an Airwolf?
Yeah. I wonder what the market is for that.
I think the feelings are in there because when I hear people say, "Oh my God, I haven't thought about GI Joe in 30 years," and all these memories start flooding back. I remember playing
Yeah.
with my Snowcat and my HAL laser at the beach and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think the same thing would happen if like
And to have that physical reminder of that, I think would be
yeah.
compelling to a lot of collectors.
I think if a line came out of Knight Rider, Airwolf, the A-Team van, I think the same thing. Like, oh, I haven't thought of Hardcastle and McCormick in 30 years. I used to love watching that show with my dad or my uncle
So
or my brother or whatever.
yeah, yeah. Well, and to get them a Christmas present of that, I think would actually be a neat
Yeah.
idea. Like those shows that you watched with your dad or your uncle or whatever, to give them that as a present and to be able to, share those memories around the holidays, I think would be a fun little experience. So, speaking of toys, um, you got me into Big Bad Toy Store, and I
Oh,
ordered my first purchase from there. I bought myself some Christmas presents,
oh, that's
and I
awesome.
and I loved it. Like it was such a good experience. I'm like, I like Big Bad Toy Store. I need to. I don't know if Nerds on Earth needs an official
Did
toy store, but I'm like, I need to look into this. That was a good experience.
you get the flat
I got a
shipping there?
I
Yeah,
did,
can't
and
beat that.
honestly, I got a bunch of Marvel Legends. I'm an old school Marvel guy, back to Chris Claremont X-Men up through just a Marvel nut
Yeah,
for decades.
whenever I drop a shout out to Big Bad Toy Store, that is not shilling, my friends. I am
Yeah,
not shilling. I
yeah, it's a
love
good
that.
experience.
I love that website, and if you're in Canada, we don't get the flat shipping because it's a little bit more to ship here, but it's still cheaper than anybody else. Cheaper than on eBay. Packed better than anyone. Like no one packs like Big Bad Toy Store. Nobody.
Yeah,
And that's
yeah,
that's the truth. That's not shilling. It's just
yeah, yeah. I had a great experience with them.
and the thing I really
Is it?
love doing about it is like if you can't go to an actual store and go sale hunting, because a big part of being a collector is sale hunting. Looking for
Yeah,
those sales.
totally.
It's just like ladies going looking for shoes on sale or whatever. Guys going to the camping department looking for good sales or whatever. Collectors love a good sale, and if you can't go to a brick and mortar anymore, then you can still get that virtual experience on Big Bad Toy Store. I love hitting that sale tab on my
Yeah,
laptop and going, whoa! Like I just got a 2-pack of these classics Masters of the Universe that I had been looking for a long time. It was a San Diego Comic Con, I believe, exclusive of Rotar and the Twisty guys. I
yeah. I remember. I
their
remember.
names
Yeah.
slipped my mind, but
Um.
they were up there. It was like $60 for that set, and I was
Yeah.
like a little too rich for my blood. And then it dropped in price a lot, and I was like, good price, but still, it's kind of like at the card table, right? Hold.
Yeah.
And then for
Yeah.
Christmas, like it dropped another $10, and I was like,
Yeah.
yes.
Man.
And when it came
Hitting the
in,
buy button.
yeah, when it came in, and I'm going to do a video on them soon. But when it came in, I checked the site because when I do the video, I want to be able to say they still got them for this much. The price had gone back up, like
Oh.
the $10 to its regular amazing price. But
Yeah.
that just was awesome to go. Wow, I got that on not just a sale, but a super sale, and you don't really get that at many other online sites. So that's what I
Well,
really
and
like about them.
to that point, the one thing I wish is like, oh man, they need a wish list
Yeah.
feature so that you can store stuff. Because I'll go through and browse, and then
It
like,
would
oh,
be
that's great, and I'm gonna keep my eye on that. There's no way to like store it to keep your eye on it other than put it in the cart.
Yeah. It would be amazing, a Big Bad Toy Store catalog.
Yeah,
I think I would
I
actually
miss
pay for
toy
that.
catalogs.
I would almost pay for that. Like just like the old Sears or Consumers Distributing catalogs, like Big
Yeah,
Bad Toy Store could make the most amazing printed out catalog of here's all the stuff for this quarter or this half year. Because they are a great way of kind of reliving the glory days of the big toy
It really
stores.
is. Yeah.
So if they could actually,
No.
even if it was like a digital, like a PDF of it, that would be cool.
Yeah. So Canada isn't it Starlight Citadel or what's the gaming store that's in Canada that
EB
does a lot
Games.
of EB? Oh, you still have EB games?
Yeah,
But it was
electronic boutique.
I think I was thinking of one that's just board gamings, and I did board
Oh,
gaming, and I didn't know what Canada had for toys.
well, we
It's
have
a
Toys
bummer
R
about the
Us.
shipping. Shipping is just yeah. You still have Toys R
We
Us,
have
yeah.
Toys R Us. I have one 10 minutes away from my home.
Ugh,
Uh,
that's
s-
awesome.
so yeah, like we're okay on the toy stuff, and not just Toys R Us, but like the WalMarts here have really upped their toy section game. A lot of the WalMarts here have like it's the corner of the store and it's huge. It's like double or tripled in size. And then we have this grocery store called Real Canadian Superstore, which is kind of like a Zehrs here. We have
Hmm.
Zehrs grocery stores. But even that has a toy section now. So that takes me back to when I was a kid and I'd go into like a Dutch Boy, which was a grocery store, had some clothes, but a toy section.
Yeah,
So I was just in a Real Canadian Superstore the other day and I'm like, toy section? This is like a Walmart toy section. This
yeah.
is weird. I go into the back there and they had Star Wars Kenner reissue figures. So my mind just went,
You're
I've
like,
seen these
yeah,
once. And the one time I saw them was at Toys R Us. And the only other time I've ever seen them is in a grocery store, the Real Canadian
yeah,
Superstore. Like, oh my God, that's amazing.
yeah. A little 10-foot toy section is kind of what you get. I'm here in Minneapolis, which is the land of Target. And Target has a fine toy section, but it's not an expansive toy section. I mean, they cater to the,
Yeah,
cycle through the big sellers, which I understand, but
pretty similar to Walmart.
Marvel Legends exclusives. And so I'll go through just to see if they have the exclusives. And it's like, what am I doing in Walgreens? But
Yeah.
looking for action figures.
Do you have a lot of vintage retro toy shows in your area?
Here in Minneapolis, no. If we do, I've missed them. But that's what I love. I love the old flea market style, just like a dumb box of just a million GI Joe guns, right? And
Yes.
I could spend an hour just sorting through that, and everyone else is like, "We gotta go," and I'm like, "It doesn't like I'm gonna be here for days. Like
Yeah.
just leave me be." I love that, and I love finding like old broken Joes and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Um, but there isn't a big flea market culture here in Minneapolis either. So you have to head
There's,
to
there's no
eBay, which
fleas.
is e
There's no fleas. It's freezing. It's like
it's
here.
freezing. Yeah, I mean we're further north than you are. Uh, Rooting through the box, is the hunt.
Yeah.
And eBay, it replicates that somewhat, but I do need to find that. It would be good for my nerdy soul to just go to a couple toy shows and just spend a day just looking.
I would imagine there's got to be something in Minneapolis,
Yeah,
or St. Paul. There has to be. It's they're big enough cities, and if my mid-sized town, I always think of my town as a small town, but it's definitely not anymore. It's definitely mid-size, starting to go towards big city. But we have one every couple months here, so it started modestly, and a lot of people turned out. They line up at the beginning of it. So
I need to look into it then and find out what might be available. So.
Yeah, easiest thing is just go on Google and search for Minnesota toy shows because I'm in Ontario and I just do a search for Ontario toy shows and holy smokes, there's one almost every weekend somewhere in the
Yeah,
province. It's crazy. I don't go to most of them because I can't be driving an hour here or 2 hours or 3 hours there. But yeah, if you can find something close by, man, that's the best. Just 5-10 minutes. It's usually the admission is like $5 or $10 here.
just a little covered. Yeah,
Yeah, and that's understandable. I mean, that it's not free to rent the hall and the space and the staff, to run the place. So as long as it's $5 or $10, I'm cool with that. Some of the places charge way too much. I can think of one in particular that's like, oh, that's way too much. It doesn't need to be
yeah,
that much. Maybe there's other stuff going on like panels and stuff that causes that price to go up, but I'm not interested in that stuff sometimes, most of the time.
Yeah.
I'm not. I just want to go toy hunting. I want to find that bin and,
Yeah.
kind of
Just
massage my
root through
way,
it.
root through it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know that feeling you're talking about. I usually only get that with my own bin because I have a bin of
Yeah.
stuff. And if I get something new, then I've got it like a bag of guns and dump them on the floor and, searching for an Uzi, need an Uzi. Oh, there's a clip for Beachhead's rifle from a modern Beachhead. That's cool. But yeah, like I got that gift box a while back from Caleb, and it was a bunch of Joe stuff
Yeah.
in a shoebox. And man,
It's the best.
that was
Yeah.
so awesome.
Yeah.
That was like being at a toy show with one of those bins. But the thing about the toy shows is, yeah, you got someone pulling on you going, we gotta go, or you got someone hovering over you like, hey, can I go see
Yeah.
that? So there's always
Yeah.
like that kind of, can everyone
Yeah.
just give me a little space? You want to do
It's like
that?
I'm in my nerd space. Leave me
Yeah,
alone.
you want to do that thing from, I think the game was called Phoenix for Atari, where you just pull down and force field,
Yeah.
boom,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
get away from me.
Yeah.
Give me some space here. So the best thing about that gift box was just like, there's no one here. I don't have to be anywhere. I don't. I just get to
Yeah.
root through this thing for an hour. It was amazing.
We one of the Nerds on Earth guys in our Slack, he sent me a Slack message and he's like, oh man, I found my, he actually writes for D&D, so
Oh, cool.
um uh wrote one of the D&D books. And anyway, so he messaged me and he's like, I found my old Joes, but they're broken. He's like, I'll send them to you. Are you interested? And I'm like, Teos, yeah, send them to me. And so he sent me a bag of his Joes from when he was a kid, and sure enough, the O-rings had broken, and so I'm gonna go through and put them back together and send them back to him. And but it was just fun. I'm like, I actually like to do this. I'm happy to fix your old Joes.
Yeah, it is fun. And I just this week got a bag in from eBay. I think it cost me $5 of like something like 100 or 200 O-rings and
Yeah,
screws, because
yeah,
sometimes the screws are rusty or whatever.
yeah,
But like, everything is so expensive. Paints can be expensive, glues, figures, those missing parts. You want that Firefly phone? Oof, you're gonna pay through the nose. You're gonna pay
yeah.
10 times what
Yes.
the original Firefly cost. But looking at this bag of O-rings, I'm like, man, there is some justice in the world. This thing was
Yeah.
$5 or so, and you can fix 100,
Fix
200
100
Joes.
Joes.
And they're
Yeah.
perfect too. It's not like, ooh, this is, it's too tight or hard to do. I can fix a Joe in a minute. Just
Yeah.
unscrew, hook, screw up. $5. Like, thank
Yeah.
goodness for that.
You'll like this map. It had some of the guns, and it was like Snow Serpent's AK-47. Remember that?
Yeah.
And so he had a string tied to the barrel of the gun, and then went to the stock of the gun to make a little sling. And so he and I were talking about how we used to do that with our old Joes, like kind of mod them out. And I would take toothpicks and twine and like make rope bridges, like it was Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom sort of rope bridge. And but just all those little things that you would do to modify your Joes. And he would like sew like little. He's like, they're going to be in the Arctic. I need to sew them up a little coat. And then he does D&D now, and we're talking about the miniatures for D&D and how that was such a big thing, doing the miniatures and painting the miniatures. And we talked about how there's just certain folks wired like us. We're just nerdy, and there's this, and we can't not do little tweaks to our stuff to increase the immersion of the play.
Futzing.
It's
Yeah.
like just little ways to enhance the immersion, enhance the experience, even if it's just painting or modding or making or creating. And but it was so fun. It reminded me of that when I saw the little slings he had made out of twine for his Joe rifles. And yeah, and then here we are decades later, and we're still like painting minis and still kind of enhancing the play,
Yeah.
the immersion experience.
It's just the new generation of model trains
Absolutely.
or more model painting. That's all it
Yeah.
is, and
Yeah.
I guess for a lot of people they don't have to do any painting, but it's still, when you break it down, it's still this tiny thing in your hand close to your face, and you're the intricate mechanics of it. Like there's still like
Yeah.
this attention to detail and appreciation of detail and artistry at its core. And so that's why it's no different than when grandpa or great grandpa had his model trains, and
Yeah.
whoever else had his wooden blocks, wood burning kit or whatever. It's all in the same vein. I think you might have just come up with a brilliant new like a fan add-on, cloth Arctic outfits for GI Joes,
Right.
like little
Yeah.
Arctic pants and jackets. Because
Yeah.
like the
It gets
thing,
cold out. It's get cold in Minneapolis.
yeah, because whenever someone wants to do an Arctic version of a Joe, what do? They take Duke's head and they pop it on Snowjob's body,
Yeah.
or they take whatever Shipwreck's head, they pop it on Iceberg's body. Like that's one way to go, but I can't help but look at that and go, that's Shipwreck's head on Iceberg's body.
Body. Yeah.
It looks weird. It looks like a Frankenstein. The
Yeah.
body is too ingrained. So if someone were to actually do a simple, it's almost like Mego clothes, right? Just a simple
Yeah.
tiny pair of pants and a jacket with a jacket with a hood. And like that's something most people don't think about, because the Joes, you don't put clothes on Joes. Well, why not?
Yeah.
Like, why can't a Joe be the same as a Mego or a 6-inch figure?
Yeah.
If you put that snowsuit on a Joe and you get a bunch of them, let's say you get a dozen of them together, they're going to look pretty good in their Arctic
Yeah.
outfits.
Yeah. Can we talk industry news?
Sure, yeah.
So I thought, did I hear something about the GI Joe license and what's going on with the GI Joe? I need
Jazzwares.
new Joes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Hasbro, did I hear that they?
Licensed it out to Jazzwares.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What does that mean? I have no idea what that means. You got to explain it to me.
Well, as far as I know, and I'm not an expert on the situation, but rather than take the risk and make it themselves,
Yeah.
what these big toy companies that own the intellectual property are doing are licensing it out. So another company like Super 7 is paying Mattel to be able to make He-Man figures. They have to pay because if Super 7 made a figure that was called Power Mail, no
Yeah.
one would buy it.
Yeah.
They'd go, "Who cares?" But when
So it's an IP licensing
Yeah.
agreement.
so
Okay.
when Super 7 makes a figure called He-Man, and on the card that looks like the original card, people go, "I need
Yeah.
to have that. I need to have that." Well, they're going to sell a lot, and Mattel goes, "Well, you're going to give us quite a big chunk of that, because
Yeah.
people wouldn't be buying that if it wasn't for what we created." So they've licensed out GI Joe to Jazzwares, because Hasbro, I would guess that they would look at GI Joe and go, "We've been burned too many times on GI Joe. Like they did make a lot of money, but it's just not catching fire again like it had before." So it's still special to the company with the history of it, but instead of outright selling it and we don't want it anymore and we're done with it, they know the value of it. They're going to license it out and tell Jazzwares, who has a good track record, because they did the 18 movie figures, which were really good.
Yeah.
And they do the
That-
Fortnite
that-
figures, which are really nice.
Okay, that I didn't know. That's what I was getting at. I just wasn't familiar enough with Jazzwares to know what the product mix might be.
Yeah, they've got great experience. Like that,
So the Fortnite figures, I've seen a few of those. Those
Yeah.
are good figures.
they're like the modern Joes to the next level. To the umpteenth level. They look beautiful, and they did one that looks a lot like Firefly, and everyone's like,
Oh, did they?
"This is Firefly. Like, this is gray camo with a mask," and it's like, "Is this Firefly? Are they allowed to do this?" Probably caught someone's attention at Hasbro, and there, instead of "Hey, stop that," it was more of a "Hey, you guys want to make a deal?" So
Yeah.
when you're licensing out your property, the big thing is you don't want someone to, make a turd with it.
Right.
Like Spin Masters got the Tron license when Tron Legacy came out, and I love Tron Legacy, but those figures could have been way better. They were
Yeah.
kind of bottom of the barrel. The light up feature was nice on them, but they didn't shell out the money for the license for the likeness rights. So they took shortcuts here and there. Like you didn't get a Jeff Bridges figure. He's always with the mask on. Actually, you did get the old Jeff Bridges, but the sculpts weren't all that good. So Hasbro, if they're going to get someone else to do G.I. Joe toys, they better be as good as they've ever been, if not better. You don't want like some really crappy product that falls apart and then people go, "This sucks." Now I'm done with Joe forever. So like it's win-win for Hasbro. They're going to be
Yeah.
making lots of money if Jazzwares sells a lot of them.
Good for us. We might get new stuff.
We might get really good stuff that's even better than if Hasbro kind of gave it a half-hearted effort. Jazzwares might care more because sometimes those companies that are licensing, getting the license, care more than the company that owns it. And they're
Yeah.
like, give it to us because we're fans. Sometimes it's the fans that start these smaller companies and got to pay the rights to the bigger company that doesn't really care all that much. So I'm optimistic, fingers crossed for reissue GI Joes, because I want this whole $400 for an original GI Joe mint on card to stop.
Yeah.
If someone can afford that, cool. Put it in a hard plastic display case on your wall and enjoy it. But I'm thinking about the thousands and thousands of people who would get a lot of joy from a mint on card Duke or Snake Eyes hanging on their wall too, and they can't afford $400 or $500, but they
Yeah.
can't afford 15, and
Right.
not everybody's the same. Like the purists, a lot of the time, they lack that empathy. We were talking about empathy earlier. So a lot of the time, I notice the purists lack the empathy, and they say it has to be an original for you to have that feeling. And there are way too many people out there going, get the same feeling from a reissue.
Totally. Totally.
Like I look at my reissue Transformers. I'm looking at my reissue Sideswipe, my reissue KO reissue Wheeljack. I love it. And if that
Yeah.
was a $700 original, I wouldn't feel any better about it. In fact, I'd be a little
You'd probably
terrified.
love it. Yeah, you'd probably love it less.
I'd be a little
Because you'd
terrified.
have to pay for it.
I'd be
Yeah.
like, oh, I got to get that out of there,
Yeah.
because anything happens and oh my Lord.
Yeah.
So to me, it's not fine china. It's plastic. I've said that right from the beginning. This stuff is plastic. It's not fine china. It was never intended to be worth hundreds and hundreds or thousands and thousands of dollars. It's supposed to be affordable little things that warm your heart.
Yeah.
So I'm hopeful that, I'm sure Jazzwares will do some really awesome modern style stuff. It would be cool to get some more like 25th anniversary Joes, although that's kind of, you're redoing what they already did. I mean,
Hmm.
go with a 6-inch route, give us something different. But
Yeah.
the one I'm really hoping for, not just for me, but because I don't even know if I'll be able to afford any of them, but I would love those the vintage ones to be reissued on the
Yeah.
original card art. So hopefully Carson can help them out with that. Not the new reinterpreted art, but the original card art, the original figures,
Yeah.
reissue, resealable, clamshell packaging, please, so that we can take it out, futz with it, put it back in.
Yeah.
But that's
And
what I'm hopeful for.
if they would do any sort of
Oh, yeah,
vehicles, I would own them immediately.
yeah,
That would be
yeah. That's
that would be great.
it'd be interesting, like if they, because the anniversary vehicles are great. They did little upgrades here and there on the anniversary vehicles. They're pretty similar
Yeah.
to the originals, but with headlights and with
Yeah.
parts that were originally molded on are now removable, like removable
Yeah.
shovel, removable
Yeah.
this and that. But I guess it would also be nice to get, like, just if you're going to reissue the figures, just do a straight up reissue of the original vehicle too. This is what the box was like. This was like what the vehicle was like.
The blueprint.
The blueprints, yeah, the flag points.
Hmm.
That would be wild, and it would be so cool to own, even if you can only afford the entire 1982 line, even if that's the only one they ever did, just the
Yeah.
1982 straight arm line.
Yeah.
How amazing would that be to have like a shelf of the entire 82 line, the vehicles and the figures, for what would that run you? $1,000 maybe?
Yeah. Yeah.
For that whole thing, compared to how much would that run you of the original 82, like
Oh gosh.
mint condition, unopened box, mint on card.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars.
Or what would a reissue flag be? Can you imagine?
A reissue USS, well, a reissue would be a little better because
Yeah.
they reissued Fort Max. I would think that's kind of similar. Transformers Fortress Maximus was reissued a few years ago for a couple $100. I
Yeah.
think it was $200 or $300. And the original goes for $1,000 or more.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I would
Yeah.
think like a reissue flag, same deal probably, like a couple,
Yeah.
two, three.
300,
That's
300
fair.
bucks.
I'd say that's
Yeah.
fair. Get a complete brand new USS flag for $300. That makes me happy, And I
Yeah.
have an original flag, but the thought of other people getting to own a flag, do the ultimate upgrade for it, do that, or maybe Hasbro has seen enough of those and goes, we need to do that. We need to make
Yeah.
the under part of the flag so that they can stick that on there. That'd be awesome for Joe fans.
And I know WizKids has a smaller license for GI Joe gaming and Transformers gaming. So little Hero Click style. So they would be radically different, but there's an opportunity for some games
Yeah.
and maybe some unpainted little Joe models and Transformers models. So I'll probably check those out.
And they're
Again,
also
completely different, but it'll be fun.
And there's another company that does this line called World's Smallest. So
Yeah.
they
Do they have the Joe?
well, yeah, they're doing some Joes. So they do miniaturized everything. The other day I just saw a miniaturized Atari 2600 controller, and it's a keychain, but
Yeah.
you push the button and it makes Atari 2600 game sounds. So
Yeah.
they're also doing Joes, and they're really teeny tiny. I think they're like mask sized instead
Oh,
of
really?
3 3/4.
Do not get me going on Mask. I love Mask.
Everybody
Oh,
loves
I would.
Mask. You know why everyone
Oh,
loves
I love
Mask
it.
so much? Because there's no mask. There's no mask
Yeah.
anywhere. That's why everyone loves it.
Oh man,
Because you
that
love what
was
you can't have.
yeah. And the Visionaries were another one where it's like, I would love to get
Yeah,
my hands on some of that stuff.
yeah.
And so IDW did some comics for all those, and it was back when they were going to do the Hasbro Shared Universe and Rom the
Revolution.
Space Knight and the Micronauts and some of that stuff that you just can't really get anymore. And yeah, the comics are fine. The Larry Hama, where he just picked up issue 156
Yeah.
with IDW. So I read through all the Joe comics to 155 Marvel, and then I picked up. I skipped the Devil's Due was fine, but I picked up the Larry Hama, and I'm still reading those with IDW. But some of those others just didn't hit the way they wanted to, and I was just hoping that Mask would, because I wanted Mask to hit some sort of a little resurgence so we'd see more of it, because I loved that when I was a kid.
Yeah. We will see Mask again one day. I'm actually really surprised we haven't seen it yet. We got that Matt Tracker figure for the 25th anniversary line, but yeah, that's a real puzzler because in Humanoids, yeah, I get that we haven't seen that back. Visionaries, I get that. Cops, those were really small, obscure lines. Centurions, short
Yeah.
run, didn't really do much business. But Mask was around for years, and it had a
Yeah.
long run and.
Great cartoon.
Yeah, this is not like it's not Silverhawks. Mask was Thundercats. It
Yeah.
was around for a while. It had great toys. Everyone loved them. Like
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember ever hearing someone say I hated Mask.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
I get the cartoon, not aging as well as some other cartoons, but the toys, amazing. Like
Yeah.
almost up there with Transformers with just how cool they were. So I'm just wondering what Hasbro's waiting for. They're
I am
sitting on a
too.
gold mine there.
I'm too. And it's kind of got this Iron Man sort of thing going on, and Transformers, and you kind of blend all that
Or
together.
James
It seems
Bond.
like they could find. Yeah, absolutely. Seems like they could find a market with us collectors, plus find a new market among kids nowadays. I think
Yeah.
might enjoy that.
Maybe the Jazzwares G.I. Joe license is a precursor, and who
Yeah,
knows
let's hope.
if the
Let's hope.
if their
Gosh.
Joe stuff goes well, then maybe they'll get the license for Mask too.
Yeah.
Who knows?
And if they can't do Joe vehicles, but they're like, we will do Mask, I'm like, I'll take what I can get.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Well,
Yeah.
we're at about an hour now, so
We hit it.
yeah,
We hit our time.
so it's lunchtime, nap time for me.
That's right. That's right. Mid-afternoon nap and tea. Well, it's good talking to you as always.
Yeah, super fun. I want to give a shout out to Nerds on Earth, which you write for over on
Yeah.
nerdsonearth.com.
.com.
What's
Yeah.
what's the latest and greatest on Nerds on Earth?
Well, we do a lot of D&D stuff. Obviously, is big traffic for us, and board gaming. And I just, we get a lot of products in the mail, and I just got the latest Starfinder book. So if you're a role player and you want to role play in space, so stuff like that will come out. Board gaming, I think I said that, and but then we also do a lot of comics. MCU is core for us. So we're what you'd find in a game shop plus just big nerd properties. So like we recapped every episode of The Mandalorian, that sort of thing. And it's just a collection of us nerdy buddies, and we do it as a hobby, and we're lucky it kind of grew from there. We were 3,000 visitors short of 2 million in 2019, and I'm like, are you kidding me? If it just would have been a leap year, we would have had 2 million in 2019. But
that's how it always goes.
It's great, yeah. So it's going well, and it's a lot of fun for us, and we get to stay in touch and talk about all these nerdy things that we love, and meet other nerdy people and develop these relationships. So it's been good.
Yep. Well, it's like the Bible says, the geek shall inherit the earth.
That's right. That's right. Nerds are winning in the end.
A lot of those original Bibles have a typo in them, but it's supposed to be in the geek.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that's canon now.
Yeah, that's my head canon. And that's all that matters. Well, thanks again, Clave, for your time. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Great talking with you.
Looking forward to chatting with you again. Everyone out there in internet land, podcast land, thanks a lot for watching or listening. And until next time, Nerdmas Day.
Later, nerds.